This is Kim Feinberg in Johannesburg, South Africa, on the 28th of June 1998, interviewing Mr. Willie Ungar. This is Kim Feinberg in Johannesburg, South Africa, on the 28th of June 1998, interviewing Mr. Willie Ungar. Right. Willie, can you tell me what is your full name that you were born with?
My full name, my birth name, William. But they called me Willie, of course. And in the school, they called me, I had a nickname, Gunnar. It was, that's how they called, you know, everybody had in the school there, in the Hebrew school, nickname. So I was called Gunnar.
Will you tell me, when were you born and where were you born?
I was born in on the 14th, actually it was Yom Kippur when I was born, 14th of October 1929. And born in those days it was Mukachevo, it was occupied by the Czechs.
I'm going to be cutting folio. Okay.
Willie, tell me, what were your grandparents' names and what did they do?
My grandfather was a tailor.
Now, which side was this, Willie?
It's from my mother's side. I knew more of the mother's side because my mother was from Mukachevo, from Czechoslovakia, part. My father was from the Slovakian part. Now, Mukachevo, where I was born, it was occupied by the Czechs. And when I went to school and all there, and in 1938, I was still not even 10, it was occupied by the Hungarians. And I carried on the schooling in the Hebrew school. And of course, afterwards, I went over to the gymnasium, you know, when I became older. And we used to...
Willie, let's just go back a little bit to your grandparents. Can you tell me about your grandparents, please?
My grandparents, they were... my grandfather and my grandmother and the grandmother, whom I remember, my grandmother's mother. Actually, my name, Willie, comes from my grandfather. That was his name, but he died. I didn't practically know him. I knew only the grandmother. He died before me, or I can't remember him, but I know my name comes from him, Willie. His name was also Willie. And he was a painter, actually, and I don't know how and how he died. And afterwards, my mother, talking still about my mother's side of the family, they were very religious people. They were, my grandfather used to take me every Saturday, Friday night to school, to shul. And I used to go to a cheder, and also it was when I became older, it's like a part of a yeshiva. I was actually going to the cheder with the grandson in the same cheder where it was a very famous rabbi, the Munkachi rabbi. Everybody knew him. He was very, very famous all over Czechoslovakia. He was, of course, there were fights between them, you know, one was more religious than the other one, and they didn't agree. You had the Satmars, the Jews, you had the Belzer Jews, you had the other different ones, and they were partly also against Zionism, especially the Satmars. They didn't like us, that we were Zionists. We went to the Hebrew school, but I can't remember. I know that my grandfather used to tell me that they were always fighting between each other, you know, the younger generations, you know, but the rabbi was a very famous rabbi, the Munkacs rabbi. Everybody knows, I mean, even in America and so on, everybody knows the rabbi. And he, of course, he died, and I think somebody is still alive, maybe the or the grand-grandchild. I think there are somebody still in New York, because I speak here to some of the rabbis, and they heard of this, the Munkachi rabbi.
And Willie, your grandparents from your father's side?
My grandparents from my father's side, again, I didn't know my grandfather from my father's side. Now, my father came from a completely different part of Czechoslovakia. Then those days it was Czechoslovakia, but it was Slovakia from where he came. And he came down, you know, as those days looking for more opportunities to another place in Czechoslovakia, and he came down. He opened a little workshop there in Munkac, where I was born, and afterwards slowly he brought down the families, his side of the family, his brothers, and I remember them still. They were Ungar brothers.
And what did the Ungar brothers do?
Jewelry. They were all jewelry. All of them were jewelry. My uncles, my cousins, my cousin in New York, my cousins today who are still alive, the younger generation in London are all in jewelry. They were all of them in jewelry. And they brought down, and my father got married there. She met my mother there in Munkac, and after she brought down his brother, and the two sisters married two brothers, but those days somehow they didn't let them, what I understood, because of the rabbi, those days the famous rabbi told them that they have to part. They can't be together. I think it was nothing to do with blood relationship, it's to do with jealousy and so on. And they told my uncle to go and open another, in 30 kilometers away, it was Uzhhorod, it was the main town, he should open there a business. And that's what happened. He married and he opened, and we used to visit as children. They had two children. It was Shani and Tibor, two younger than me. And we used to visit each other, and he had also, I would say, a workshop and a shop there. And then the other brothers used to work. They were the younger brothers, my father and the older brother who married the two sisters. Afterwards there were two younger brothers. They were working, they were still studying the jewelry, and they were working, one of them worked with my father and one with my uncle. And going there, after my mother's side, of the family from Ungar. She had two brothers, younger brother. The one brother went to the Hebrew gymnasium, that was my uncle, and he wanted to be a doctor. And he studied to be a doctor, he went to higher schools, but those days already when the Hungarians came in, occupied Czechoslovakia, they didn't give the opportunities for the Jews. And then he became also a jeweler, and he was working. I remember him as a child coming to work to my father's place. It was the uncle, that means for my mother's side. And they never, he was older, they took him away, you know, when the Hungarians occupied my part of Czechoslovakia, so they took the younger people, the younger over 18 or 20, were 22, they took them to, what's names, to, it's not to the army, but it was like munkaszolgálatos, it was in a working camps.
Willie, just to backtrack a little bit, tell me a bit about your parents and the home that you come from.
I was, we were quite well off, we were well known. We were practically, we were the only jewelry manufacturers there in this town. And Ungars, everybody knew. There were a few shops, but we mostly, I remember my father used to travel, he used to sell his products, not really in town, because it was a small town. From where I come, it was approximately 60,000 people. From this, over 30,000 were Jews. It was a small town and very religious. I mean, if somebody came from Unkács, it was well known, everybody knew it. And we had, of course, villages around us where the Jews used to live. They had agriculture, and they used to come, quite a lot of them came as in the Hebrew school as what's names, they were living in, because they came from the villages. So as a child, I used to, my father knew that I was interested very much already then as a child in the jewelry. And I used to go, whenever I came home from work, I used to go to the, it wasn't really, I wouldn't call it a factory, to the workshop, where we had workers, of course, learning already then as a child the
After
trade.
school?
After school, I used to, and I would say so, that saved me.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had a younger sister and a younger brother. It was Iboya was her name, the sister, and the younger brother. I don't remember much of them. My sister must have been younger than me. I would say maybe 2-3 years younger. But and my younger brother also. I was already going to school, and I was more with in the factory side working. And at home, we were religious. We kept a very kosher home, but that's most of the people there. My father's side, they were not so religious, my father's side of the family, as my mother's side. But they were, you know, as I say, my grandfather was a tailor, and he used to go every day to the shul, and he used to take me, you know, but my father's side, I used to know them. I used to go. It was quite far from one end, but my father used to go every year to visit his side of the family, so he used to take me. I was the oldest one, and he used to take me always. So I knew the grandmother, and I knew but it was in a completely other part of the country. And we used to, as I say, and there I used to meet up with with his side of the family, always in this part, in Slovakia. His part, I had my cousins there, but then none of them came back. None of them. None. It's only from my mother's side, nobody came back. From my father's side, it was only saved my uncle, his younger brother, who managed to. He wasn't married. He managed to get out in '38 when the Germans occupied completely Czechoslovakia. He managed to get out with the first, with the last train to London. And there he was in a camp because as a refugee, and he survived. And he's got two sons. He passed away only, he was 85, he passed away 3 years ago in London.
Willie, tell me about your school and what did you do on holidays and Jewish holidays?
About my school, as a youngster, we used to come together. We used to go a lot skating, ice skating, because that's this part of where I was. It's the Ukraine part. There were all the mountains there, the famous mountains, the Ukraine mountains, and we used to go from the school skiing and skating a lot. I used to do a lot of skating in my younger times with my friends, and even I took my children there. I used to, as a child, I used to go to the school with skis, and they were quite well, where the school was. It was quite a rich street. It was called the Sugar Ulica. It was a very, very rich, and rich people used to live there, and we used to meet at one of the gates, and one of the girls there, as a youngster, I must have been 8, 9, and we used to ski together to the school. And we used to use bicycles. We didn't have cars or taxis, nothing at all. And the winter was very, very cold. We had very cold winters. I remember it lasted until April, May, the winters. And we had a swimming pool there, a municipal. Ruled by the Hungarians, what I remember. And I used to go fishing quite a lot. We used to have the Latorca, it was a famous river. And I used to go fishing. I remember it, my father, Sunday, whenever we go, even in the evenings, we used to go fishing. Sometimes my father, showing off, you know, we used to buy from other people fish and coming home to bring the fish that he wanted to show that he caught it. But we used to do a lot of fishing. It was a small place, and as I say, there were a lot of Jews there. And during the, we were in a, where we were staying actually, it was walking distance anywhere. It was in the center. And the factory, I mean that was a workshop, was not far. We used to walk it from home to the factory, and I used to come home also at night. I used to do my studying, but as I say, I never wanted to study. I was always more interested in the manufacturing side of the jewelry. And in the evenings, we used to come together, friends from school, because it was all walking distance. I used to play, I remember, but after, before also I used to play billiard. We used to have a place there, a meeting place, where we used to take like snooker, but those days at billiard. I used to play a lot of ping pong. I used to play. I was quite good in ping pong. And we used to do sport in the school. In the school we used to do quite a lot of sport. It was a very famous school where I went, and really from there, from this school, I mean I didn't finish school there, but a lot of people who finished schools there, they became very, I mean they went to Israel and all over, and they became very famous. It was a very famous school. We had one of my teachers, he was actually the director of the school, whom I met up in, he was in Hulon, in Israel, the mayor of Hulon.
Willie, was there any anti-Semitism from where you came from?
It was. You see, usually wherever you've got Jews, you've got anti-Semitism. Where you haven't got Jews, it's nothing. It was anti-Semitism. Especially, I wouldn't say, I remember the Hungarians. They were very big anti-Semites. And not even the Germans, the Hungarians carried out everything. And we had to wear, when the Hungarians occupied it, all right, you had here, there, but we were taken to the, to the ghetto, when the Germans occupied it. They came, I think, it must have been 43 or when the Germans came into Munkach, and then we had to wear these Mogendovits.
Were there any fights between the children?
The children, we used to have fights, yeah, with other schools.
Can you explain a little bit to me?
We used to, but we were well organized as children. The Hebrew gymnasium, you know, we had quite a few gangs. I belonged also to a gang, and I've got a friend who lives in LA. I meet him. He was one of my gangs, and in Israel I've got a few friends who survived. We were fighting. We were fighting between each other. Of course, those days even the police we were caught up with the police also those days. But they were always on the other side, of course. And but we had to watch it. We were told in school, try not to avoid it, you know, because usually they came out from schools, we came out, and the others came out from other schools, because you had quite good school. It's not only the Hebrew school, I mean, where you were mixed, Jews and non-Jews in the schools. All right, I happened to be, we went to the Hebrew. I started it as you will see the pictures I've got as a little child, and I grew up, but a lot of people went to different schools. It's the same as here you got the Jewish school. But there, it was completely different. We had to speak Hebrew. It means if somebody came out from this school, he spoke Hebrew. I mean, had, I had it very easy also because I didn't speak Yiddish. I learned only in the concentration camp Yiddish. We didn't speak at home Yiddish because my father didn't speak. We spoke German a little bit, but Yiddish I learned only in the concentration camp. And the Hebrew helped me. What I learned in the school those days helped me a lot in Israel, because when I came already with the army there in the in 48, I spoke, I understood the Hebrew, and of course it was a different Hebrew what I learned to this, but you got used to. I mean, that's still the same, but it was we learned more the Duk, the different Hebrew, but we got used to it, and I was learning. I mean, I spoke Hebrew in the army and everywhere. It definitely helped, and schooling also. It was very, very strict. It was very, very strict at the school. The Hebrew, I mean, gymnasium is very famous. I mean, they came to Munkac, what I know, from all over Czechoslovakia, other part of Czechoslovakia. They came there to learn. And we had movements, you know, we had the Beitar. I used to belong to the Beitar.